Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Devin Hogan, and I have had the pleasure to serve as the Minneapolis DFL chair since 2018. And as a person who's voted Democratic their entire life, a farmer who runs a cooperative market garden on Nicollet Avenue, and a laborer who serves as the parliamentarian of my union's local, I'm very proud to call myself a DFLer. Also, during this Pride Month, I'm super proud to be out as a queer and non-binary person, and representation matters. I see you. So as your party chair, I've helped to spearhead the effort to reinvent the caucuses from scratch and put them on the internet this year due to COVID. And so what I want to do is give a special shout out and kudos to our central committee members, and to all 60 of the participating campaigns seeking endorsement this year. We've spent a lot of time together since last October to pull this off, and I'm very excited. We're finally at the point where balloting has become underway. Also want to say thank you to everyone who's attending and watching us live and or recorded on this hot summer Saturday. So the purpose of these events is for you to get to know the candidates better and to give the candidates an opportunity to have more time to explain to you why they're asking for your support. We sent a form out for delegates to submit questions, and these questions will be used for a candidate forum in the later part of today's event. As the party chair, endorsement is actually my favorite part of all the work that we do, because it's Democrats coming together to agree to say this is the person who affirms our values the most as Democrats. In a big tent, there's always going to be disagreements, but endorsement, again, means coming together. And I think that's something pretty cool and worth emphasizing and celebrating. So now on to my second favorite part, is how I get to flex how each ward in Minneapolis has influenced my life here and how it's meaningful. And I will say Ward 5, in my opinion, has two of the best commercial districts in the entire city, West Broadway and Glenwood, two of my favorite streets. And Harrison is actually one of my favorite neighborhoods in the whole city as well. My first interaction with the Minneapolis DFL was as a paid canvasser in 2016. So I've door knocked every single precinct in Ward 5 at least twice, and really had a great time getting to know that part of the city very well. So now I'm on to the contractually obligated part to pass the hat. Minneapolis DFL is 100% volunteer run and sustained on small dollar donations. Right now, our average donation is about $22, $23, and every little bit helps us do the work. So you can donate any amount at minneapolisdfl.org/donate. That's minneapolisdfl.org/donate. And if you haven't given to a political party or candidate this year, you can get up to $50 of your donation refunded via the Minnesota Political Contribution Refund Program. And then finally, just to wrap it up, we were very excited to see all of the excitement people have about voting this year. We've had citywide over 65% of our ward delegates fill out ballots at this point. But wanted to remind all of you watching that you can vote as many times as you want in your ballot, and only the most recent ballot will be considered for your final vote. So now moving on, I would like to introduce all of the candidates that we have running here in Ward 5 and thank them for their service for running. Each of the candidates will have a 5-minute introductory speech, after which we will do a short question and answer session where each candidate will be offered the same question in the same amount of time to answer it. So what I'm going to do is just go down in the order who is on the Zoom here, and then have those, we'll have a randomized order after that based on the speeches. So first up, I have Victor Martinez. Victor, you have 5 minutes for your speech.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. My name is Victor Armando Martinez. I have been on the north side for 17 years. I graduated from Patrick Henry High School up in the northern part there. So I hope some of the pollers out here in 5th Ward won't hold that against me. I've been here pastoring for 15 years. I was a youth pastor for 10 years and a lead pastor now for the last 7. I've also done work at NERC, which is Minneapolis' largest community organization here in Minneapolis. I've been the vice chair for about 5 years, and John Jamison and I were able to take the organization from almost folding to helping create its first headquarters in its 40-plus year history. NERC is one of the most diverse boards probably in the city of Minneapolis. Anything from anybody from renters to homeowners to Caucasians, Hmong, African Americans, Latinos, all types of folks in our community represented. Had some spirited conversations, but we're able to move forward. And the reason I'm running for city council and the reason that I'm asking for your vote is because this past year, for the most part, we voting people that we feel could do a good job for our community. But just things that happened last year that I felt was just connecting our communities, putting folks against one another. There wasn't a consensus being found and just causing a lot of frustration, and things were said and done in our city that began to affect my family, my church, my friends' businesses. And I took October of last year to speak to about 100 Northsiders here on the fifth ward, principals, teachers, business owners, community leaders. And I kept asking the question, like, why has the North Side been asking for safety and prosperity since 1967? Or actually, I asked for the last 17 years because that's as long as I've been here. But folks told me that had been around since 1967. They said, Victor, we've been asking for that for a long time since then. And talked to some of them, talked to the people that lived through the riots of 1967 here on Plymouth, and really found out some of the issues that have been plaguing the North Side that haven't been addressed, from opportunities to just safety for our community. We have the highest concentration of young people in the state of Minnesota. 35% of North Minneapolis is under the age of 18. That's 20,000 people. I had spoke to also Al Bangora, which is a superintendent. He told me that, Victor, I've had the same level of funding for youth programming for the last 20 years. And so our community has been overlooked. It's been given very low resources that is causing a lot of the inequities in our school district and in policing as well. And so my campaign is really about two things, real simple. It's not sexy, it's not going to make headlines, but it's really, number one, curbing crime through youth diversion and community empowerment. I believe that the community needs to be at the front of the line in terms of being empowered and resourced to be able to do their job. We're talking, I hosted about a month ago the first ever virtual training for block leaders. It was on pause for almost a year because of COVID, and the whole system was basically frozen. And so we did a Zoom. We got 7 new block leaders to get engaged. And I believe those are the small things that it really takes to bring people together. Because crime, oftentimes, if it happens around you and you're in a silo or you're by yourself, it amplifies its effects on you with trauma, fear, and eventually wanting to leave the community, which we've seen a lot of in the last 10 months or so. And so that's number one. And number two is rehabbing West Broadway. West Broadway is the only official business corridor in the city of Minneapolis, and it's probably the worst one in its condition. There is no plan to keep it clean. There is no plan to keep it safe. There is no plan to activate its storefronts. It takes a lot of leadership. It takes a lot of investments. It takes a lot of people coming together from the state, federal, city, county, businesses, community. It takes everyone to make it happen. And so I made my decision to make that my platform, is helping to rehab West Broadway. It is a 2-year term, and I definitely want to be real about what I could offer, but I believe I can start having the conversations and bringing the people at the table that need to be there to really help influence. We have some of the biggest investments coming here in the North Side, probably in ever, with the light rail, the Upper Harbor Terminal, and the things that are happening on the North Side. And if we don't bring the community to the table, if we don't give the community the opportunity to really benefit from this, we're going to speed up gentrification, because people that are already here don't want to be here no more because they're afraid of being shot. And so I believe that that is important to deal with, and in the inequities in our community, to make sure that we're all safe, because out of safety is where you can build everything else. We can bring development, housing, but without safety, it all becomes sabotage. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Victor. Our next candidate to speak for 5 minutes is Kathy. After you, Kathy.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Hello, other candidates, and our council member, Jeremiah Ellison, current council member. Hello to you as well. Thank you for this opportunity. Once again, my name is Kathy Spann. I am a pro-choice advocate. I'm also a mother of 2 amazing young men that keep me focused and on point. I'm a lifelong Democrat. I have lived and worked in North Minneapolis for over 25 years. I'm a dog lover. My dog is sitting right here next to me right now. I started my career in North Minneapolis as a part-time receptionist at Phyllis Wheatley Community Center, which used to be a settlement house that would only allow, there was the only place in Minnesota that Blacks could actually come to and live at many years ago. I referred people to resources to pay their rent, childcare, housing, and things of that nature. I have managed and directed programs for agencies that are the cornerstones of this community: Summit Academy, OIC, North Point, Turning Point, and I am currently now the executive director of Jordan Area Community Council. We are one of the oldest neighborhood associations in Minneapolis. Also, I partnered with the Minneapolis Police Department and the residents of Jordan to implement several different types of initiatives. So I have a proven track record. And I implemented the Take a Stand, Cease Fire to address gun violence, the Truth About Drugs to address the opiate epidemic between Black and Brown families. We also did the Better Bus Stops to address crime that was rampant on our bus stops that are hot spots in the Jordan neighborhood. I have created and worked with the Center for Energy and Environment to create senior loans, emergency grants, security loans that typically individuals could not get access to this type of funding. I'm a member of the Hennepin County Mental Health and Local Advisory Council. I've been nominated and selected to be a 2020 Minnesota Civic Leader. I am a 2020 Presidential Fellow, appointed to the state to a committee that's about improving community relations with police. It's an advisory council. I'm running on 3 initiatives because, like Victor said, it's a 2-year position. So really, I'm talking about public safety. We have to really get a handle on this gun violence. The second thing is about housing. I support affordable housing, mixed use housing, and I am also about rent subsidy for families that really cannot afford their current rent right now. And I'm about employment. It's jobs, jobs, jobs. It's also about social enterprises, and it's also about economic inclusion. This community faced from January 1st of 2020 to January 15th of 2021, we had 2,284 incidents of violence. That is unacceptable for one community to be faced with that. So I am an individual that is seeking your support in helping me help you really build back our community to what it used to be. Victor is correct. We have been facing issues for 20, 30 years. It is time to build back our community. I thank you for your support, and I look forward to working with you and for you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Kathy. Our next candidate who has a 5-minute speech is Jeremiah Ellison.
Thank you so much, Devin, and thank you to all of the delegates who are out there watching this forum today. It's been my honor as somebody who was born and raised here on the North Side to serve alongside you for these last 4 years. And I want to continue serving alongside you. And I want to talk about some of the work that I've done because as somebody who sought the DFL endorsement last time, somebody who's seeking it this time, having served, I'm now in a position to not only share your values, but also I'm in a position to show you what I've done and tell you what I've been able to get done. And I hope that it's on the strength of that work and it's on the strength of this relationship and that you all will send me back to City Hall and that I'll be, that I'll have the opportunity to serve alongside you. You know, I think that a couple of issues come top of mind when I think about the most important issues that our neighborhood's facing. And I want to let you all know what I've been doing on each and every one of those issues. And I think that when you think about public safety and when we think about creating safe communities, I think the first place you have to look is housing stability. How are people living? Are they living in dignified conditions? And I've spent the first part of my term really leaning into that. I co-authored the city's tenant protection ordinance, putting a cap on how much landlords can charge for security deposits and expanding housing accessibility. The renter first policy, changing the way the city does housing inspections to ensure housing stability for the city's most vulnerable tenants, holding landlords accountable without punishing their tenants, establishing the city's renter relocation ordinance, the emergency repair board, and the emergency stabilization pilot program, which took 10 of Mahmoud Khan, notorious slumlord in our community, took 10 of his residents and put them on a pathway towards home ownership. I'm currently co-authoring the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Ordinance, which would give tenants first right to buy the housing and the buildings that they currently live in. The city's rent stabilization ballot initiative, which gives the city's city council permission to pursue rent stabilization ordinance, and right to counsel, which would ensure that all tenants have legal representation in housing court. Because we know that nearly 90% of all landlords walk into housing court with an attorney, but almost 10% or less of tenants walk into housing court with an attorney. And the outcomes for tenants with an attorney is much better. Their ability to stabilize their lives and stay in their housing is much better. In my first term, I was inspired by Northside businesses to establish the Commercial Property Development Fund, which gives dollars and greater opportunity to local, Black-owned and POC-owned businesses to buy commercial buildings in the communities they live in. And you guys are seeing some of the results of that at 927. You're seeing some of the results of that with Baldwin Square. You're seeing some of the results of that with Sammy going to be opening his third location soon in North Minneapolis, using funds from this fund that I created. I also work to increase funding in the city's business technical assistance program, including expanding technical assistance services to small developers and worker cooperatives and artists. I have connected businesses to state and federal funding, including securing LGA dollars to renewable energy partners. Many of you may know that as Jamez Staples' renewable energy program, and you can see the renovation happening in that building along Plymouth. You can see that happening right now. And if you look on the roof of that building, you're going to see a beautiful solar array that he was able to install after he secured the LGA dollars. I'm currently working with Congresswoman Ilhan Omar to connect Northside businesses to her COVID-19 recovery proposal. I think that Northsiders deserve cleaner air, cleaner water, and environmental justice. I worked with community activists, the Minnesota Pollution Control and the Attorney General's office to shut down Northern Metal's shredder ahead of schedule. And I'm still working with those same groups to address the consistent fires happening at Northern Metals now. I've worked to promote cleaner soil by securing dollars from the state's Brownfield grant program to remediate toxic soils. I'm currently working on the city's zero lead poisoning plan to increase disclosure of lead in homes, which is not number one way that children receive lead poisoning, and to remediate the lead in homes and in the soil in our community. And I'm working on a proposal to get the Herc incinerator declassified as renewable energy, and to ensure that any new highway construction that does not result in added lanes and increased emissions from car traffic. Like with Northern Metals, I will continue to work with state agencies to monitor industrial uses on the river and to prevent environmental harm from continuing on the north side. I've also put a lot of work into public safety, how we're keeping ourselves safe and our neighbors safe. North Minneapolis has carried the burden of gun violence for far longer than this past year. And so solving these issues means we have to go more upstream, and we have to lean into more than just the police-only model that we've had for decades, for those 5 decades that somebody already mentioned. And so I'm leaning into that, and I'm securing funding for the Office of Violence Prevention and other violence prevention initiatives to make sure that we can have a safe environment. And I'm happy to talk more about it as the forum continues. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Appreciate it. And our final candidate to give their 5-minute speech is Christelle Porter. After you.
Hi, my name is Christelle Porter. You may know my story as you have seen my video on the ballot, but if not, please check out my website at northsidersforchristelle.org. Today, I will be focusing on talking about my plans for Northside. I'm not going to sit here and tell you about the issues of violence and public safety that we have in North Minneapolis. We know about these issues. We have all, as Northsiders, experienced and have been hurt by the recent ongoing violence and crime in North Minneapolis. As a parent and single mother, I too worry about my children's safety and how they will be impacted by the violence and crime. So I stand here today, or sit here today, and talk about the steps we can take to help our youth and the future of North Minneapolis to decrease the amount of violence and crime. Because we as a community deserve that. We as parents deserve that, and our children deserve that. Many people have talked about the reason why children get involved in crime and violence is because there's nothing for children to do in North Minneapolis, but I beg to differ. There are plenty of resources and nonprofits to engage our children with the community, but no one is talking about these resources. You say we need to get children involved, but no one has said how. I'm here to tell parents and teachers and community members how. We have Hopewell Music Cooperative that offers free music classes to Northside kids. We have community centers with open gym hours for our children. We have recreational centers at North Commons, Farview, Harrison, and Falwell Parks. We have the Lapid Foundation that offers free mountain biking, hiking, and skiing for Northside children. We have Redeemer Lutheran Church that offers education on bike mechanics and summer camps, as well as cooking classes. We have Northside Fresh and Growing North that offers urban farming programs for youth and so much more. So I'm going to take a stand against the fact that there's nothing for the youth to do. There is. So what we need to do, and what I'm going to do, is to bring resources to these organizations, to be able to expand their capacity and to keep these organizations alive and well, as create a coalition to connect these organizations to better connect with children and their families with the programs and resources that they provide. Now, as we get our youth more involved in the community programs, nonprofits, and projects, we can decrease the possibility of our children getting involved with the violence and crime in Northside. However, we cannot ignore the fact that our families in North Minneapolis are struggling to pay their basic bills and to provide for their children and themselves. Children are not ignorant. They are not naive. They can tell when their mother and father is stressed and struggling to get by. Children see this and may get involved in crime in order to support their family. So while we can get our children involved in the community, we also need to support the people, the families in Northside, by investing in commercial development for our community. Our city has been sitting on potential land for commercial development along our commercial corridors for decades and has been allowing outside developers to hold up that space and deliver nothing to our community. Every year, our city council approves to renew and extend their rights to develop, not giving the opportunity for local Northside developers to put in a proposal. And here's what I'm going to do. Instead of continuing to approve funding for them to do nothing, I'm going to approve funding to local developers to work with local businesses and entrepreneurs to develop spaces that have affordable commercial ownership models for our community, along with high quality housing that we need for everyone, seniors, families, youth, and yes, not everybody in North Minneapolis qualifies for low income housing. So why not provide something for these populations who are here? From this, we could earn twice as much property taxes for infrastructure in order to improve the state of our roads, parks, and schools. We got all of these homes, but so little of those taxes go to our schools. We need to redraw the lines and based on the needs of each individual community. I will be the city councilwoman that already has relationships with the community organizations, the park directors, principals and teachers in the schools, church communities, and business owners. And when given the opportunity to represent you on city council, I will not blindly invest resources into our community, not knowing which organizations and groups actually do the work. I know what organizations actually do the work. You know which organizations actually do the work. So let's start getting them the resources they need to make real impactful change. I would like to go in further. We have less than probably 30 seconds left, but you can always look at my website, northsidersforchristelle.org, or you can simply give me a call at 763-645-6743, and we can always discuss further into detail around the issue of rent control, our stronger mayor, and of course, my strong stance for and against environmental injustices and environmental justice in North Minneapolis. So I hope that you choose to elect me as the DFL endorsed candidate for Ward 5. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, everyone. Now we are going to move into the candidate forum. So based on where we are on time, we've got 6 questions. I'm going to put all 6 of them in the chat for you to review. Every candidate will have 1 minute to answer each of the questions. Every candidate will be given the same questions, and we ask that the candidates do not refer to each other in their responses. So I'm just going to continue then on in the same random order and as we've done before. So the first person to be asked this next question is Kathy. And the question is, by the way, these questions were submitted by people from Ward 5 as part of the delegate process. So these are your neighbors that have submitted these. So the first question for Kathy, how long have you been involved with the DFL, and what would the endorsement mean for you as a candidate? You have 1 minute.
I am a lifelong DFLer. My family were DFLers, my mom, my dad, but I have not been as actively involved with the DFL party as I could have been. And I think it's because I look at in terms of how has the party benefited people of color. And the reason I'm seeking this endorsement and other endorsements that align with my philosophy is that I really want to see the DFL party make a difference in communities of color and Black communities. What are the benefits? How can we get involved? How can women have more leadership roles in the DFL party? And especially women of color. I am excited about that opportunity of what the DFL party can introduce to the Black community. And I'm excited to be a part of that, to be a part of change, because change is coming. And I want to be a part of that.
Excellent timing. That was right at 1 minute. Up next, we've got Jeremiah.
Thank you so much, Devin. I've been involved with the DFL my entire life, and I do mean I'm 31 years old, and I do mean basically 31 years. I'm born here, raised here on the North Side. I've been going to caucus ever since I was a little kid. My parents would always take me. And so obviously I ran for the DFL endorsement and secured it in 2017. And what I love about the party is that the party is who shows up, right? And so every year, you cannot just rest on your laurels and think that you're going to secure this endorsement. You've got to go talk to people. You've got to go prove what you've done. You've got to answer their complex questions. And so, the endorsement is really important to me, not only because I've been involved with the party so long, but again, because that key value that especially here at the local level, the DFL is who shows up. And so for all the folks that are out there showing up and saying, this means something to us, I want to continue serving them.
Thank you. Next, we have Christelle.
Yeah, so I've been a part of the DFL my entire life as well. Showing up to caucuses and voting, holding my mom's hand from when I was a really little girl. And I've been a part of caucusing ever since I was 18 years old when I could vote. So yeah, and also I was definitely a part of the process as a youth before I was 18 in different capacities, but also making sure that we held the adults accountable in our community to be a part of the process. So yeah, my whole life.
Excellent, thank you. And then finally, we have Victor.
Thank you. As a Latino on the North Side for 17 years, I've been an active voter, and I've never once been asked to be part of the DFL caucus process. I was new to this. I come from a broken home. We barely had time to make sure that we had enough to eat. My mom was always working. The Latinos on the North Side typically aren't reached out to. And me being an active voter, I was never, ever asked to be a delegate for anybody and never invited into the process. But then as I became a lead pastor, traditionally pastors stay away from politics and endorsements because, in our churches, we have people from all over the political spectrum and we don't want to isolate anybody. But I have personally supported other DFL candidates for the last 6 years. I supported them because I believe in them, their perspectives on issues, their vision of a more equitable and livable city. We're all safe. We can all be safe and may prosper. The DFL comes closest to that standard that I believe in our city. I will also say this, that I believe that no one in our community should feel disenfranchised. I don't care where they're at on the political spectrum, but I want to represent you. So I'll get that opportunity to represent everybody. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so I'm going to put the next question in the chat, and the first person is Jeremiah. And the question is, what have you done to create opportunity and safe space for Black people and businesses?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I hate to keep returning to the Commercial Property Development Fund, but I think it's really important for people to understand how it works. This fund didn't exist 2.5 years ago, right? I heard loud and clear, the number one thing that Black people on the North Side, the immigrant communities on the North Side, our Hmong community, our East African community lack on the North Side is access to capital. And so I wanted to create this fund to create that accessibility. Commercial space can be incredibly expensive to build. So even if you can build it, you can't find tenants because the build outs are so expensive. And what this fund does is it allows not only for folks to own on the North Side, folks who live on the North Side to own their buildings. It also means that if they have rentable space in that building, they can offer an affordable rent in that space as well. I think that as COVID really wreaked a lot of havoc across the country, 500,000 people dead. I had to fight really hard to get more testing opportunities on the north side, and we did so. I came from oh, sorry, that's my time, but just the same thing with vaccinations as well.
Great, thank you very much. Christelle, you are next. What have you done to create opportunity and safe space for Black people and businesses?
So I actually started a group called the Cycle Sisters, which is a group of BIPOC women that go on bike rides in North Minneapolis. And every time we go on a ride, we pick a business in North Minneapolis to support. We hashtag that business, we show up, we spend money. I give money to every single woman that's on that ride, or any person identifying as a woman on that ride, to be able to spend money there. We give them all kinds of marketing, and we also provide them with gift cards so they can come back and support that business. During when the pandemic happened, and right after George Floyd was murdered, I actually went up and down all the business corridors and helped each business with applications that they could apply for to get funding to be able to make it through that time. I've done so much more, but even this last weekend, my group and my gymnasts have given away 5 planters to 5 businesses on Broadway to improve their facade. So I'm not a city council person now, but that's what I've been able to do as a regular resident.
Thank you. Victor, you're next.
I joined NERC 7 years ago. I helped lead the organization with John Jameson for 5 years. For those that don't know, NERC is Minneapolis' largest community organization. John and I took the organization from almost folding to building its first headquarters, as I mentioned earlier. This took a lot of work to lead. We recruited and hired a local Black community leader that was cared more about the work than the recognition. We recruited a very diverse group of strong board members, and 3 years later, we had our headquarters. This headquarters belongs to the community. Obviously, COVID has slowed down the open house opportunities that we were looking to have, but the headquarters serves as a hub for youth, senior citizens, and those most vulnerable in our community. At NERC, we've also approved and support local development projects that will benefit the community. One of those projects that I'm most proud of is supporting Devin George's vision for the corner of Penn and Golden Valley. For those that don't know, Devin George is an African-American homegrown basketball star. He played and won 3 championships with Kobe Bryant, and he wants to give back to the community. And so I've had a privilege and an honor to be part of that process and be able to do the outreach and support for his development.
Thank you. And then we have Kathy.
Hi, I have supported, I've been doing this work for 25 years. So as the executive director of Jordan Area Community Council, I helped create 5 loans and 1 business grants. We do rehab loans for families that live in the Jordan neighborhood. We have down payment assistance, security, emergency loans, business grants. I have provided jobs through contracts for small businesses. We created just this year and implemented micro grants, and we awarded 6 grants to small businesses that are on the north side of Minneapolis. We've done recycling with A Mother's Love, and we've done recycling with Rusty and the crew. We've done healing stories with Off the Blue Couch. So we have created entities with a faith-based community as well. We love communities of color because 80% of the families on the north side are people of color. So we make a way out of no way on a limited budget.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right. So the next question, Christelle will be the first to answer. The question is, if elected, what will you do to improve the livability of Ward 5, North Minneapolis from an environmental standpoint? And I'll put that in the chat as well for everyone.
So a little bit about my work. I actually started Clean City Youth, which employed about 75 youth in North Minneapolis every year for a few years, and we taught them how to clean up the stormwater drains and how to recycle properly. Actually taught recycling classes, how to properly recycle at the Hennepin County libraries throughout North Minneapolis as well. Also, the Cycle Sisters was an initiative to get more women on bikes, to the mothers, a lot of the head of the households in North Minneapolis, to start using bikes as a use of transportation. One thing that I would like to see is incentivizing people that are willing to adopt their stormwater drains, getting credits on their utility bills for that. I think that we need to divert some of the waste away from HERC. North Minneapolis it bears the brunt of all the trash that gets burned in the entire Hennepin County. So we need to create spaces so that we can throw away LED light bulbs, so that we can throw away LED light bulbs, so that we can, I'm sorry if I blocked out, somebody called me.
No, it's all right. We're actually at time here for a minute.
But
I also am having bandwidth issues myself. So
thank
next we have Victor. If elected, what will you do to improve the livability of Ward 5 from an environmental standpoint?
One of the things that I was most proud of when I ran for NERC, I ran to be a representative for my district. And so when I bought a house here in the Willard Hay neighborhood, garbage was a huge issue. I mean, we had blocks where a couple areas of our block would be just littered terribly. And so at first I would go and pick it up myself, but we had the campaign during that time for Don't Litter. And so I would get the city to give me the material, the bags, the gloves and everything. And I would go to those homes and give them these things and put these signs up in front of homes. And little by little, our neighborhood became cleaner and cleaner and cleaner and cleaner. I believe it is about empowering the community. I really believe that if you give the community resources to do the work, it does amazing things. I do believe also that we need to enforce ordinance. Like, for example, it is not okay for us to create outdoor mechanic shops in our neighborhoods where our roads are layered with oil and grease, which now over at AutoZone now they're starting it up again, and that parking lot is becoming an oil slick and nobody's saying anything about it. So I believe we need to enforce our ordinance and make sure that we have a clean place to live.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Next, we have Kathy.
Thank you. You know, communities of color are the first and hardest hit by climate change in our state. We're the first and the hardest hit. Education. Metro Bloom has a project called the Blue Thumb Project. It talks a lot about sustainable landscape, reduce runoff, improve water quality. I would really partner with more organizations such as them. We need to really understand as communities of color, what does recycling, how does it benefit us? It was just reported in the newspaper that Scott, Dakota County, they had high levels of leakage and their landfills have been closed down. What are we doing to our landfill? So really, technically, we need to be educated first about the impact of what we are doing and then work with small organizations like Metro Bloom and then really create and work with our environmental services department at the city of Minneapolis to implement and give funding to these small organizations.
Thank you kindly. And next we have Jeremiah.
You know, I already touched on some of this, but I just want to reiterate that North Minneapolis used to be the home of places, a lot of industrial uses. We still have a lot. We used to be the home of industrial uses in the city. And we used to be the home of landfills in the city as well. And so leaning into remediation and making, you know, some of the reason that we can't build on some of the properties that we have is because of the toxic soils and because of the infirm soils, because of all the dumping. And so getting that soil remediated, whether it's getting firm soils, removing toxicity, that's a really big deal. I talked about Northern Metals, but I also want to talk about this lead disclosure issue. When I first got on the city council, I was told, you know, hey, look, there's this loophole when it comes to lead disclosure where folks can just say they don't know. We eliminated that loophole, and now we're looking at how we can make it so that that loophole can lead into actual remediation and supports for that, so that we're not using our own kids as lead detectors, which has been the status quo moving forward, you know, in the past.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. So this next question is about transportation. Victor is going to be the first to answer. How do you personally plan to support or not support the $1.4 billion Blue Line projects currently being planned to run through North Minneapolis? Victor, you have 1 minute.
North Minneapolis has been asking for money for development for a long time. I think that this is an opportunity to embrace. Obviously, the hopes was that it was going to go up 55 and up the train tracks, and a lot of people still think that it's going to be that way, but that just goes and shows that the lack of engagement in the community. I believe that no matter which direction this light rail goes, whether it's on Broadway or Lowry, the community needs to be at the forefront, especially our businesses. They need to be at the forefront no matter what is decided, make sure that their voices are heard. Not everybody's going to agree on the same issue. I understand, but if we could find consensus and be able to make sure that that consensus is what's happening on the ground, that's accountability. And that's what I would work to do every step of the way. Keep accountable the people that are doing the work in our community.
Very good. Thank you. Next up, we have Kathy.
I support this project. However, I keep telling people you cannot get from Target Field without coming through North Minneapolis. What I think we need to look at is transparency. We need to look at economic inclusion. How does this project bring about economic and wealth to the north side? How does it address displacement of home ownership? How does it displace renters? How does it displace businesses? So we have to look at a critical eye at this particular project. Does it come down West Broadway? Does it go down Washington? Does it go down Lindale? So as a community, this is our project, and it's time now for us to decide how we see the vision of transportation and what does it look like and how does it impact us as a community. So I support it with a community-led vision.
Very good. Thank you. Excellent. Up next is Jeremiah.
I'm going to try to cover 3 topics in 1 minute, so bear with me. First, I think we need to talk about policy. Anti-displacement policy is going to be critically important, making sure that we have a strong preference policy. That means that people who want to buy a home, people who want to rent a home, have preference when it comes to changes happening in the community. I've authored the preference policy at the city of Minneapolis, and I think that we have to lean into more anti-displacement policies. Second is monetary. The Commercial Property Development Fund creates a model for us to go to the county and go to the state and say, this is how we're treated. This is how we're getting local ownership into the hands of our local businesses on the north side. You all need to take this project and take it to scale. And I think that if we do that, we're going to be able to see stabilization in our businesses, and we're going to see our neighbors owning the corridor. That's a big deal, and that can happen with this project. Lastly, I think it's alignment and the way that the train is built, and nothing needs to be off the table. It might go up West Broadway, it might go down Lowry, but I think, you know, if community members want this thing to go underground, or if they want this thing to be built so that we can still have traffic underneath, those options need to be on the table.
Awesome. Thank you. And finally, Christelle. You're on mute if you're trying to speak.
Sorry about that. So I do support it coming through North Minneapolis. North Minneapolis does deserve to have the same type of transportation as anywhere else in the city. But what we do need to make sure is that we don't displace our businesses. You know, currently I have been attending some of the meetings around this light rail coming through the neighborhood. And what I see is nonprofits at the table. What I do not see is the for-profit businesses that will have to go through a 3-year construction. Many times we have seen Black communities be completely displaced due to road construction. In the past in Armando, we've seen that happen, and most recently on University Avenue in St. Paul. So what we need to do is, if it is going to come through North Minneapolis, just like Kathy said, we have to do some serious engagement, and we need to also create policy to make sure that we can create a temporary space for those businesses to relocate while the construction is happening, while making sure that they allocate space so that they can come back and own those spaces on the corridor if they have to relocate.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Based on time, we have one last question here. And the question is, how will you work to continuously provide resources and supports to our unhoused neighbors on the north side? And kicking things off, we have Kathy. And you are also muted if you're attempting to speak.
I'm sorry, is that for me?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Up to you. Yeah, after you. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. In 2019, Cura did a study on average rent increase by 3%, that rent had increased in Minneapolis by 3% since 2009. Cura also found that people experiencing the largest rent hikes are renters of color, Black households in particular. I think the greatest housing issue that I would immediately address really is lack of supply and rent subsidy. California, New York, Oregon have already adopted some measure of rent control. I am really about trying to look at how do we house our population of individuals in housing that is adequate and affordable for populations that not only are below the 15%, so 30% AMI, but those that are also can afford are 100% the AMI. So I support affordable housing, mixed use housing, and I also support rent subsidy. So as the city council person, I would really support all three types of those types of housing for our city of Minneapolis to bring back Minneapolis.
Thank you. Excellent. Next we have Jeremiah.
Yeah. Housing is certainly a huge topic. I could take on a big chunk here, but I think we're being asked to focus specifically on the unhoused, folks who are already unhoused. You know, a lot of you know that, that there's an encampment over in the Harrison neighborhood, and I will say that that encampment has had some unique qualities to it, which is that it's mainly self-sufficient. Is it the way we want people to live? No. Is it the way that the folks that living there want to live? Not entirely. They have a vision, they have their own autonomy, and I think that we need to be working with folks who are unhoused to understand what their vision for becoming housed is. We're headed towards an eviction cliff with the governor's moratorium on evictions ending. That means that we're primed to have more people ending up on the street. That means that we're going to have to get creative about how we're engaging this issue. It's not going to simply go away on its own. I think that we're going to have to wrap our heads around some kind of authorized or sanctioned encampments that we can then work with to build towards housing projects and more affordable housing that suits their needs, but working with the folks in that encampment to make those projects happen.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Next we have Christelle.
Hi. Okay. So I have spent a lot of time actually at the different encampments throughout Minneapolis. I actually just helped a woman with a lovely neighbor of mine by the name of Jennifer Thompson get into a shelter a couple nights ago when we were out patrolling in the middle of the night. And what I've asked them was, if I offered you a good paying job that paid you $50,000 a year, 40 hours a week, would you take it? You know, and I'd ask them little questions like this and they'd be like, no. And I'm like, well, why not? They're like, because I am not able to do that. Mentally, I have a mental disability or I have something going on where I can't do that. And so really what Jeremiah was saying earlier is very important. We have to actually talk to these folks, get to know them as human beings and ask them what is going to work for them when it comes to housing. Not everybody can pay rent every single month like everyone else. We have to increase mental health services for our community.
Thank you. And finally, we have Victor. Victor, you've got 1 minute.
I want to say, first of all, Hennepin County is one of the best places in the Midwest to help the poor communities. My mom and I, my family, we came to Minneapolis because Hennepin County is really helpful. I want to say that historically, Hennepin County has done a great job being able to house folks. And I agree with what was just said, that a lot of the issues, when I've been out in encampments, when I've been helping people that are unhoused, mental health problems are the number one issue that I've seen out there. And so the housing, in terms of folks that are in these conditions, need to be continually supported. I've also been told that since the Hennepin County has been so good at doing this kind of work historically, that places from Chicago and other places in the Midwest would bring people here just for that. And that population is growing. Now, one of the issues that I want to really address is a growing homeless youth problem that we've never had in this country. It continues to grow. And if we don't start closing the faucet, we're going to continue to feed into this problem. I believe that we need to deal with it upstream, help them when they're younger, invest when they're younger to help stop what's happening in Minneapolis right now.
All right, thank you very much. I just want to say again, thank you to all the candidates for your participation today. And thank you also to everyone who's watching. I do want to close this out with a final speech from Eric. Eric, how do you pronounce your last name? So I don't mispronounce it.
It's Moran.
Moran. Okay. So Eric Moran is running for Park Board in District 2, which represents downtown and North Minneapolis. So Eric, after you, to close this out, you've got 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Eric Moran, and I'm running for the Minneapolis Park Board to represent District 2, covering North Minneapolis and parts of the North Loop. I've been a resident of the North Side since 2015, along with my wife and daughter. Our parks should be accessible by all, and access to the park's resources and space needs to be made equitable to all residents and guests. Individuals with accessibility needs, non-English speakers, and those using transit cannot be denied access to our park systems. All of the park's digital, print, and media needs to be made accessible as well and meet defined standards that have been well established. Additionally, our park system should be built, maintained, and updated to match our rapidly changing climate. As a member of the Park Board, I would ensure that we're doing all we can to meet these challenges, including reviewing existing infrastructure and making plans to provide educational opportunities to all visitors. North Minneapolis has been the most welcoming place I've ever lived. The parks we share in District 2 are some of the best kept secrets in all of Minneapolis, including the Shingle Creek Falls, the water park at North Commons, the awesome views at Farview, and the North Loop Playground alongside the West River Parkway. North Minneapolis has been underrepresented in our parks for systems for too long. Throughout this year, I want to hear from you, the District 2 resident. I will be holding a number of listening sessions and holding events through, holding events throughout our community. My contact information can be found on ericforparks.org, Eric spelled E-R-I-C, and for spelled F-O-R. I look forward to meeting you and working together to make a more accessible park system for all.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I do just want to remind everyone who's watching that the Park Board ballots are on the city convention ballots, which come out next Wednesday. But because of the geographic location of the Park Board districts, we're inviting our Park Board candidates to the ward conventions. So again, everyone, you've got until Tuesday, 11:59 p.m. to fill out your ballots. Appreciate all of the efforts that everyone has gone to participate this year. Enjoy your afternoon. And for those of you watching, I'll see you in a few minutes on Ward 6. So have a good day, everyone. Take care. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Devin.
Thanks, guys. Take care.